Welcome back to the Londolozi Photography Studio Lightroom tutorials. If you perhaps missed the last few videos, this series is put together to help you to learn more about Adobe Lightroom and to help you to get more out of your wildlife photography by becoming a master of post-processing. In my last video, I took you through my basic workflow. It was a pretty quick overview, and so today I want to take you through one section in a bit more detail. I'll be talking about white balance and color temperature in this video, and showing you a few ways in which to adjust your white balance in Lightroom. Let's first look at what white balance really is. And if you look here, the definition, quite plainly put, is the process of removing unrealistic color casts so that objects which appear white in person are rendered white in your photo. And proper camera white balance has to take into account the color temperature of a certain light source, which refers to the relative warmth or coolness of white light. And in other words, the way I kind of explain it is finding a neutral point or a neutral white from which to adjust the colors accordingly. So if you have a slightly bluer white color or a slightly warmer white color that the camera takes as neutral, the colors are going to be slightly different according to that. You'll recognize these icons on the left-hand side from both Nikon, Canon, Pentax, any kind of modern camera will have these white balance setting icons. And what these correspond to are the types of light sources that you'll see on the right-hand side here. And depending what type of day it is, where you are, outside, inside, natural light, artificial light, the various lighting conditions will have a certain hue, which you can see represented here on the left-hand side. And they're measured in a measurement of Kelvin, which is a little more technical. You can either go into your camera and choose the light source or the type of light for that day while you're shooting, represented by these, or you can actually be a bit more specific and set a Kelvin rating within your camera. What I generally do, because I love to use Lightroom to post-process my photos, is I will leave my camera on auto white balance. I find that my camera does a very good job of getting a neutral white or a neutral light, and then I'll go into the develop module on Lightroom later and I will adjust the white balance after that. Depending on the type of feel that you want for your photo, you can go and change the white balance accordingly in the develop module. And here you will see that this image I took during summer in the Sabi Sands. I wanted a pretty dramatic, cool, sort of colder feeling to the shot, and I pulled my white balance right down or my temperature right down into the cooler ranges. Similarly with this shot, again I wanted to capture the coolness of the Sand River. This is Finfoot Crossing at Londolozi, and I really loved the cool water against the cool sky. It was a really hot afternoon, so I wanted to capture that feeling. And again, you'll see that I made the most of the cold temperature and the cooler feel of it. If you look at this shot, the feel of this I really wanted to capture was the warm golden light of the afternoon. And you'll see that the color temperature is a lot warmer. There's a lot more of an orange tone to this. So this just kind of explains how you can be sort of creative with your white balance, and you can go and choose whatever tone you want to tell the story of your shot. If I flick over to some of these photos I took recently on the reserve, beautiful sighting of a really large group of rhino, one little one there in the front and then his older brothers towards the back. I remember this afternoon being a really warm afternoon. It was sort of getting quite late in the afternoon. There was a beautiful apricot glow to the light, and you can see here my camera captured the light quite nicely and the white balance quite nicely. As I move over to these shots, you can see how much cooler they are, not representing the light that I saw and what I remember of the shot here. So in order to adjust the white balance accordingly, I'm going to click over to this one of this little guy walking down the road. And I'm going to go over here into the basics panel, and I'm going to play around just with this section today, white balance, and then later on a little bit about tint. And you'll see here, WB represents white balance, and under here, under this drop-down menu, there's a whole lot of different versions. As shot will give you the white balance as your camera shot it. If I click on auto, Lightroom is going to go and choose the white balance that it thinks is going to be the best by choosing a certain spot in the shot that it believes is the most white or neutral spot, and it's going to then adjust the color balance, the temperature and the white balance accordingly. If I go into daylight, so telling Lightroom that I shot this during bright daylight, again you'll see that it adjusts the white balance. I'll tell Lightroom that it was cloudy. You'll see how much warmer it makes the shot. Shady changes again. Tungsten, which is going to be your more artificial light, you can see Lightroom is really battling here. Obviously because the shot wasn't shot in a tungsten or an artificial light. So I'm going to go back, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can do this. I'm going to go back to as shot, and instead I'm going to rather adjust the color temperature here on this toggle bar. Before I do that, just to show you this little dropper here, you can pick this up, and anywhere within the shot you can go and say to Lightroom what you remember of the shot being the whitest part. Over here is probably going to be your whitest section. Maybe over here there's a pretty white spot over there, and if you click on there, again you're going to say to Lightroom, this is what I remember as being true white, and adjust the colors accordingly. So if I drop this little dropper here, you'll see that it's adjusted the light accordingly, and the white balance and temperature. That's pretty nice actually. It's probably closer to what I remember the light being, but just for the sake of this tutorial I'm going to reset the shot by pressing reset down here. And I'm going to rather focus on the temperature toggle over here. And you'll see, if I go all the way to the left, you'll see how, it's putting a blue tint onto the photo, but it's also cooling down the shot. By moving this toggle slowly to the right-hand side, you'll see how it's putting a much warmer orange tint to the shot. So I was about here when I started the editing, and I really want this shot to be warm. It was a beautiful warm summer afternoon. So I'm going to probably move it more into a range of about here. I remember this ground being very kind of orange and warm, and the leaves were also very nice warm temperature. So that's pretty cool where it is there now. The second thing I'm going to play around with is tint. And tint, I always say to whoever comes up to me for an editing session in the Creative Hub in the Londolozi studio, I say that tint is quite a dangerous area to play. And the only reason is because it starts to make your shot look pretty artificial. You can see even the smallest of moves on this toggle bar is making the shot look very processed. So if I take this back to where it was, double click will take it back to where it was. I want to actually bring a slightly warmer glow to this. So I've added quite an orangey warm tone by adding the temperature and warmth up here. But I actually want to add a little more of a rosy glow to this shot. I remember the quality of light being like that. So what I'm going to do is very, very simply and pretty in small amounts, just got to move this bar up very slightly to the right hand side. And you can see it's not a huge amount from this central spot over here up to the right. But you'll see that now the quality of light has gone a little more pink, a little more rosy, and that's kind of what I remember. So that's kind of where I want to leave it. To show you again, just take you through that process again. Very cool looking shot here with these two rhinos having a play fight with their horns. I'm going to take the temperature, toggle, click on it, and I'm just going to move my mouse right up to the right hand side. That's probably a lot more where it was on the actual day. And again, I'm going to tint it slightly with a little rosy glow. Let's say, for instance, your shot came in like this. Okay, it came in pretty warm, a lot of orange in the shot, and in actual fact you want to then go and cool it down, but you also want to change the tint of this. There's quite a lot of pink in there. You could click onto this tint panel and you could just slowly start to move that toggle to the left hand side, and again very small increments. I'm not doing a huge big slide of the slider. Just moving it slightly down changes the warmth and the tone of that. And then again, you can compensate by just adjusting your temperature panel as well. So there you can see slightly different type of shot to the one that we edited here. And that's really all I wanted to say about white balance and temperature. Remember that it's all about trying to find a neutral spot, a neutral white within your shot, to either tell Lightroom or your camera that is the most neutral part of white, and to adjust the colors accordingly. And remember that you can either adjust your temperature to bring out the warmth of a shot, to bring out the kind of sunshine feel, or you can actually cool down a shot to bring out the cooler, more dramatic tones of your photograph. So that's all I wanted to say about white balance today. Next time I'm going to jump into this tonal panel here where we speak about exposure and contrast and how the highlight, shadows and the corresponding white and black saturation works within a shot. Definitely one of my favorite parts of Lightroom. It gives you a lot more play, and something we'll discuss in the next tutorial. Please let me know if there's anything else you wanted to know about white balance, and I will definitely get back to you and we can chat more about it in the comments below.